Sometimes when you're reading a book, you get to the point where you just feel that the story is about to change. You're still in the same story, you're still following the same characters, but something has shifted. And you know that when you turn the page, things aren't going to look quite the same anymore. And I think that's where I am right now with Wanderlust Canadian. Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a while since I've sat down in front of this camera, and I am very, very happy to be back. This video is going up the day after my birthday, which feels kind of fitting because I just turned 31. And I feel like I'm stepping into a new chapter, not just personally, but creatively as well. And I think before we can talk about where we're going, we probably need to talk a little bit about where I've been. Because July was not exactly the summer I had planned. At the beginning of July, my grandpa actually passed away. And that obviously wasn't something I was expecting, and it was a really difficult way to start the summer. But I already planned this road trip, and I actually decided to go anyways because I knew my grandpa, and honestly, he would have kicked my ass if I didn't go. He would have absolutely been like, "You planned this trip, go on the trip." So I went, and I really did try and make the most of it. I made it to Drumheller, and while I was there, I actually got to go to the museum, which was something I really wanted to do. But my car got hit. Thankfully, I'm okay, and my car is now fixed, but it was one of those things where when you're already emotionally drained and you're already dealing with grief and anxiety, something like that can just completely knock the wind out of you. And my anxiety absolutely skyrocketed. At that point, I just couldn't mentally justify continuing the rest of the trip. I had already been through a lot, and suddenly I was trying to figure out what to do about my car, what was going to happen next, and whether I should keep going with the trip. I really wasn't in the mental space to enjoy anymore. So I came home. And honestly, I think that was the right decision. But coming home didn't magically make everything better. I was grieving, my anxiety was really high, and honestly, I was in a slump. I was also really disappointed in myself. The road trip hadn't gone the way I planned, and I think a part of me felt like I'd failed. I had this whole summer planned out, and suddenly it felt like everything derailed. And then on top of everything else, my car ended up being in the shop for basically the entire beginning of August. Dropped it off on the 31st of July, and I got it back the 13th of August. So the summer has definitely not gone according to plan. And YouTube was another thing that I was struggling with. I had already had a few videos scheduled while I was away on my road trip. So thankfully, I didn't have to worry about disappearing completely while I was gone. But when I got home, I really tried to push myself back into making videos, and I just couldn't. I could sit down and make a video. I could, but it just didn't feel right. And I think that was when I finally had to admit to myself that I needed to stop forcing it. Because if I was going to make videos just because I felt like I was supposed to make a video, I was going to turn something that I have genuinely enjoyed doing into another thing that I was putting pressure on myself to accomplish. And I didn't want to do that. And I want to make something really clear. I wasn't gone from Wanderlust Canadian. I just wasn't visible on YouTube. While I was taking a break from filming, I was still doing things behind the scenes. I was working on the blog, I was fixing up social media, I was planning. I was thinking about what I wanted Wanderlust Canadian to look like moving forward. And honestly, I spent a lot of time reading. Although I definitely did not read my summer TBR that I had planned for myself. At all. Instead, I kept reaching for comfort reads. And I actually think that taught me something too. Because I didn't need a new story. I didn't need another book sitting there on my TBR telling me that I had to finish it. I didn't need reading to become another thing I had to accomplish. I needed stories that I already knew I loved. I needed something familiar, something I could pick up when everything else felt overwhelming and just disappear into it for a little while. And that's what reading became for me this summer. It wasn't a challenge or a goal or something I needed to check off. It was just something I needed. And I think that's what brought me back to the reason I love books in the first place. While I was taking this step back, I was starting to think a lot about Wanderlust Canadian as a whole. Because the truth is, I do love the videos I've been making. I love creating. I love sitting down and talking about books. I love planning videos. I love the whole process of putting something together and sharing it with you. But I realized that somewhere along the way, I started putting a lot of pressure on myself to figure out exactly what Wanderlust Canadian was supposed to be. What niche was it? What content should I be making? What fits? What doesn't fit? And I think I was trying a little too hard to make myself fit into a box. And that box just really isn't fitting me anymore. So I don't think Wanderlust Canadian needs to become something completely different. I think it needs to become more me. more books, more reading, more of the things I'm genuinely interested in, more of my personality, more of the cozy, creative, seasonal things that I actually want to make. And yes, there will still be travel. There will still be food and history and little adventures here and there, but books and reading are really the heart of Wanderlust Canadian. And I think that's where I want to lean in. I want this to be a place where we can talk about books, get excited about reading, explore different seasons, plan little adventures, and just enjoy things without me constantly worrying about whether every single piece of content fits perfectly into some predetermined niche. Because honestly, I don't think it needs to. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned from taking this break. Sometimes you need to step away from something you love in order to figure out how to love it again. And that's what this break was for me. It wasn't me giving up on YouTube. It wasn't me giving up on Wanderlust Canadian. It was me realizing that I needed to take a step back from the thing that was causing me the most stress so that I could rebuild the parts I already knew I loved. And I think I'm finally there. I'm ready to come back. Not because I feel like I have to, but because I actually want to. And I think that's a pretty big difference between those two things. I got knocked down this summer. There were a lot of things I didn't expect. There were a lot of things I couldn't control. And for a while, I felt like I was just reacting to everything that was happening around me. And I don't want this next chapter to be about that. I want it to be about taking control, about deciding what I want this to look like, about letting myself change direction when something isn't working anymore, and about remembering I don't have to have the entire story figured out before I turn the page. So, what does that actually mean for Wanderlust Canadian? Well, more books, more reading, more cozy and seasonal content, more personal and creative videos, more of the things that actually make me excited to pick up my camera and create something. And there will still be those little Wanderlust Canadian adventures too, but I want this channel to feel like a reflection of me. I want it to feel like a cozy corner of the internet you can come back to. A place where we can talk about books, find our next read, get excited about a new season, maybe plan an adventure, and just spend a little bit of time together. And most importantly, I want to actually enjoy making it because I think that's what I was missing. So that's where I've been and that's where I'm going. I don't know exactly what every page of this next chapter is going to look like yet. And honestly, I think that's okay because I'm not trying to start over. I'm taking everything I've already built, everything I've learned, and everything I love about Wanderlust Canadian, and I'm turning the page. And maybe that's what turning 31 means for me this year. Not having everything figured out, just deciding that I'm allowed to take control of the story again. So if you've been here for a while, thank you for coming back. And if you're new here, welcome to Wanderlust Canadian. I'm really glad you're here for this next chapter. And I'd love to know in the comments, what are you making room for in your own next chapter? It doesn't have to be anything huge. Maybe it's a new hobby, a new goal, or maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to let something go. I'd love to hear what you're stepping into, and I'm really excited to step into this one with you. I'll be back next Sunday. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay cozy and keep reading.